What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to basketball. The trade deadline is come and gone, if you guys can believe it. I decided to give it the weekend, see if anything would actually shift afterwards, and it did, so I'm glad that I did. But now, it's time to grade everybody. We're going to grade every single team on how they performed at the deadline. And that brings us back here to Tier Maker, because like I said, it's either Bleacher Report, a spreadsheet, or maybe like Tier Maker or something. That's what this whole channel is compromised of. This is how I make my living. This is not how I make my living at the end of the day. I own an analytics company, but this is a fun side project for me at the end of the day. So, the trade deadline. It came, it went. It was probably the craziest trade deadline of all time, right? I think that we can all say that. This is a safe place, right? That was absolutely pandemonium for a while there. I had to kick my wife out of the bedroom multiple times at like 11 or past 11 p.m. at night so that I could go record things. And you know what? That's just how much I love you guys at the end of the day. So just remember that when you remember to like go like and subscribe and leave comments and do all those things. As a reminder, I respond to every single comment at the end of the day. So really, like, this is an us thing. But anyway, the trade deadline has come and gone. How I want to grade these things, because normally, like when we're doing grading videos, we kind of do it on a curve where it's kind of based off like expectations and things like that. This is truly us grading like how good of a move things were at the end of the day. And, you know, we're going to take in all sorts of considerations and stuff like that. We're going to try to look at things holistically at the end of the day. But if a team made bad moves, and there's teams that made bad moves, or they just didn't perform at the deadline how maybe we think they should have, then, you know, they don't really get a good grade at the end of the day. I guess the thing that I'm kind of conflicted on is, like, do I grade teams that didn't make a trade at the deadline? Because I have transaction things up right here just in case. Like, who's a team that didn't end up making a move, like Denver? Like, they didn't make a trade at the end of the day. Is that not good? Is that its own category because they just didn't make any trades? I feel like we should just take into account context, right? Because they probably, like in an ideal world, would have made a trade, right? So we're going to take all of that into account at the end of the day. We're going to take all that into account. But anyway, let's start off with, we're starting off with a really difficult one, I'm not going to lie. The Milwaukee Bucks. Okay, so what did the Bucks do at the deadline, right? They made the big surprising trade of, maybe not surprising, there was some whiffs that we had caught on the channel up until this point, but they traded Chris Middleton to the Wizards. They got back Kyle Kuzma. They also traded DeLon Wright as a part of that to the Knicks, and they brought in Jericho Sims, which I think that part of the trade made a lot of sense. I'm not saying that the Kyle Kuzma one didn't make some sense. There's a lot of logic into that trade that actually went down, right? Basically, what they said is they looked at Chris Middleton, who was playing well up to this point, right? Like, he's coming off the bench now. He's looking a little bit slower, but he's still getting his buckets, right? Good for Chris Middleton. They looked at him and they're like, for the amount of money that we spend on Chris Middleton right now, we think that there's more upside in getting a cheaper and younger Kyle Kuzma. And again, probably more upside. He is not having a very good basketball season right now, but how much of that is on the Wizards and, you know, just being around a lot of undiscipline at all the time? Are we better off taking Kuzma and we save a bunch of money, we get below like that second apron, so we have more flexibility to go do more things with this team? That makes a lot of sense. And again, Kuzma probably has a higher ceiling at this point in his career right now if they could just rein him in. But again, we haven't seen that out of Kuzma for a while. So I kind of want to put this one at a C, because I know there's plenty of Bucks fans that are like, I would have rather just kept Middleton at the end of the day. Like, he's won us championships before, given he's not the same player, so I'd rather just take the risk with him. Kyle Kuzma's not that great. I can see that, and I really can, but I also do get the Bucks' reasoning, so I don't think it's like a bad trade. Like, I feel like C is like, I kind of have to wait and see, right? Like, this is what I'm going to need to evaluate and see where it goes. I'm very curious to see if we get a typical bell curve out of this at the end of the day. The Brooklyn Nets. I feel like I need to remind myself with what the Brooklyn Nets have all done as of late. So yeah, no, they didn't really make a move at the deadline, all said and done. Like, they made the other moves for like D'Angelo Russell and stuff like that. There was a thought that, you know, they could be used to facilitate other deals, right? I don't really think that they needed to at the end of the day. I think the Nets are in a pretty good place, all said and done. I know Cam Johnson didn't get traded. I know Nick Claxton didn't get traded or anything like that. I get that we wanted to see that happen, right? I'm personally of the camp that I don't think you needed to move them. They're not winning games as is, right? I mean, we can pull up the NBA standings right here, and actually they've won a couple more games as of late. But if we look at the Nets, right, they're 4-6 as of late. They are dropping in the standings. They are more so up here. They've started selling people. They're back down here at the 12, and that could probably continue to go down. I would rather just keep Cam Johnson and Nick Claxton on the team because, hey, if you can get one of those top picks, right, that's a big if, and maybe you say if you move on from Cam Johnson, you're assuring you don't win many games and stuff like that. I hear that. I think that having Cam Johnson on the team for whatever, like, hopefully really good rookie you bring in is going to be worth it at the end of the day. Take some pressure off those guys, right? We use the term landing pad a lot, giving them like a pure center to play with right away. That's a quality starter. You have a Cam Johnson on the team. That's good. D'Angelo Russell's on the team with you. Maybe Cam Thomas is still here and he can take some scoring load off whoever they draft. So I'm going to give it like a B for now because, again, we don't know what they could have gotten for those guys necessarily, but I don't think it was like a bad move at the end of the day. The New York Knicks, was it just DeLon Wright? Is that the only one that I need to think of? This is why I'm glad I pulled this up at the end of the day. Yeah, it's just DeLon Wright. They moved on from Jericho Sims at the end of the day. Yeah, I forgot that they traded for Cat at one point this season, but I don't really know what else the Knicks could have done. They didn't have a lot of contracts that were going to get them back anything else that interesting. They didn't have a lot of draft picks. Again, they went and got DeLon Wright, which is DeLon Wright even still on the team, or have they cut him yet? I have to imagine he's been released at this point, but let me know in the comments if he is still on the roster for some reason. They have enough point guards on there. I don't really think they had to do anything. Again, they could have done something good, but from where they're at, I don't really think the Knicks could do much. It's going to be better for them to kind of play in the buyout market to try and find some of that depth that they're looking for. Moving on to the Toronto Raptors, this was another interesting one, right? This was an interesting one. So the Raptors, their big move, and they made a couple moves. So let's pull them all up on here so that we can take a look. They obviously received James Wiseman, right? They received Brandon Ingram. They got PJ Tucker as part of it, and they got some draft considerations, right? Some of the people that they sent out: Bruce Brown, Kelly Olynyk, Davion Mitchell. Nobody really all that interesting. They traded that one Pacers 2026 first round pick as a part of that Brandon Ingram trade. I'll say what I keep saying about this Raptors trade, right? Like, basically the Raptors looked at this trade like economists, because I know a lot of us looked at it when it first happened and we're like, why does Toronto want to like make a buying move right now? They're 16-37. They've got this young team. Why do they want Brandon Ingram and why do they want to extend him? I really think what it came down to was the Pelicans were like, hey, for this one first round pick that isn't that valuable, mind you, Bruce Brown and Kelly Olynyk, who, look, Bruce Brown's not going to be on the team past this season, and Kelly Olynyk's not really doing anything for you. They're like, you can get a borderline all-star player in Brandon Ingram. So the Raptors are like, I guess, yeah, we'll just take him because why not, right? Like, we can always like do something with him later if we need to, but hopefully they get like a Cooper Flagg, an Ace Bailey, a Dylan Harper or something, and then that guy, again, a great landing pad, right? He's got the Scotty Barnes, the RJ Barretts, and all these other dudes on the team already. Cool. Do I think it's like a for sure, like, no-brainer move? No, I think there's going to be some questions on it, but in terms of asset management, I think it makes a ton of sense. They moved on from Davion Mitchell again, and they got some draft compensation and stuff for him. So I'd say a B deadline overall, because again, like, Brandon Ingram, he's probably not going to play much this season anyway, so they can continue to tank. That's good. If they end up signing him to a long-term contract and the team doesn't really go anywhere, then it's a little bit iffy, because again, we look at the team and it's not an ideal fit at the end of the day necessarily, but in terms of asset management, cool, right? That works. So there you go. At the end of the day, there you go. The Utah Jazz. Did the Jazz do anything besides facilitate trades? They didn't really get anybody all that interesting, right? They got Josh Richardson. They got draft compensation. They got KJ Martin. It's actually kind of an underrated one. We're going to hold Philly accountable for this one later down the line. But some more draft compensation. They got Jalen Hood-Schifino. That's right. They facilitated this PJ Tucker, Mo Bamba one again. The Jazz did exactly what they were supposed to do. They got draft compensation and took on salaries for other teams. They're not very good right now, as you can see. Down in the West, 12-39. Not very good at basketball right now. And they're just thinking long-term with things like, let me just get some more assets and things like that. I know they didn't trade John Collins, Colin Sexton, Jordan Clarkson. I don't think they necessarily had to. Again, setting themselves up for whoever they draft this year, or they still have all these assets come off-season time to where, hey, if the right thing becomes available, they can go make a move still. So Jazz didn't have to do anything. I give the Jazz an A deadline. I think they did everything that they needed to do at the end of the day. I see some really weird takes of like, why did the Jazz take on Jalen Hood-Schifino in the Luka trade? It's like, because they got paid to. They just got paid to take him on and then do nothing with him, so why not? I don't understand the opposite side of that as well. I think you guys are being a little smooth-brained with some of that thinking, if I'm being real with y'all. I'm going to call you guys dumb sometimes. I'm just going to be real with you. Just every once in a while, I'm dumb sometimes too. It's okay. Difference is y'all were born that way. I just kind of became this way. So, you tell me what's good and bad. But anyway, the Houston Rockets. and I see it. This is why I'm so glad I kept this up, because like for some of them, it's so blatantly obvious to me what happened. But like I know the Rockets took on Springer, Cody Zeller. That's the other one I was trying to think of. So the Rockets facilitated that Celtics move. We knew that they had to take on Jaden, like the Celtics had to move on from Jaden Springer. It was a good financial decision for them. So they basically got paid to take on Springer, who they then cut. And I believe Cody Zeller is still on the team. So again, the Hawks sent over Zeller. They paid the Rockets to take him. The Celtics paid the Rockets to take on Springer. Cool. I don't think the Rockets had to make any more moves. Like, you could say they could try to go make more of a win now thing. I think you really want to see what this young core does. Do they probably have too many people in their young core? Yes, but overall, like I think they did well. It's not like it was a superb deadline by any means, but like I'd give it a B. I think it was fine overall, so good for them. So far, team's looking pretty good right now. No poor decisions. The New Orleans Pelicans, outside of Bruce Brown and Kelly Olynyk, am I missing anything here? Am I missing anything? No. They took on Bruce Brown. They traded Brandon Ingram at the end of the day. They got a first-round pick. They got Kelly Olynyk, which I am curious to see how this goes. Like, I'd like to see more of a floor-stretching center on the court with Zion, right? Have we seen him on the court yet? Is he hurt? Is that what's going on with Kelly O? I can't remember. And then Bruce Brown, it sounds like they're open to giving him, like, a contract extension and things like that, which is interesting, to say the least. I mean, fair enough. Like, he's a good basketball player at the end of the day. I'm not sure I see the fit necessarily, but you know what? That's okay. That's okay. So good for Bruce Brown. I hope that it ends up happening. So they traded Brandon Ingram. We just praised the Raptors for not really giving up much for him, and so I kind of want to dock the Pelicans a little bit because they didn't move Brandon like in the offseason. Like, we had suggested that heavily on this channel. Like, we were like, these are the teams they should move him to. They should move him while values are high right now. People are going for this much. Like, people can get a whole year to evaluate Brandon Ingram then. You know, they didn't really walk away with all that for a guy that was a borderline all-star player, given he wasn't really a fit with the team, all said and done. But again, we never got a great shot. So I kind of want to give them a C at the end of the day, because I don't want to hold them too accountable for past mistakes, right? Like, the deadline was the deadline. That's what we're grading on at the end of the day. So I think they did probably the best that they could at the deadline. It's just kind of we'll see. At least they got a first round pick, because God knows not everyone else did. The Lakers. Okay, I might need to add a new category. Alrighty, so we've got a new category over here, the added Luka category. For those of you that are curious how you become or you get to the added Luka category, you have to add Luka Doncic. So not the easiest thing to accomplish in the world, but clearly not the hardest either, because the Lakers swindled them. I'm not going to spend any more time on it than I need to. We already know, right? And obviously the Mark Williams Dalton Connect thing, that thing fell apart, right? But that's not really a Lakers like thing at the end of the day. Like, could they have gotten another center? Sure. I just don't want to hear people complaining about, like, well, what are the Lakers gonna do this season? You dum-dums, they got Luka now. It doesn't matter what they do this season. They got the next couple years to figure it out. They didn't plan on Luka Doncic falling into their lap this year. So, you know what? They just do what they can from there. They tried to go get Mark Williams. It turns out his body is destroyed. And they were like, no, we're not taking him on. Which, if you guys are curious how that works, I explained this in my Discord, which you guys should go join the Discord, by the way. Links are in the description. You get to select your favorite team and everything, and kind of have that appear like with your username on there, so we all kind of know where you're affiliated with. We're talking hoops on there all the time. I think it's a cool place. But basically what happens in these contract negotiations is, or in these trade negotiations, is you can put a clause in these contracts that basically says, like, hey, these guys have to score this well in these physicals, otherwise we can void the trade if we want to. It's kind of like a backout clause or something like that. And so basically what happens is they put that in the Mark Williams trade contract, and everybody signs it. They bring in Mark Williams. 5 or 6 doctors are going to take a look at him to basically evaluate, like, how well do they think his body's going to be able to hold up, right? They're looking at him, they're doing all these tests, and they're like, do we think his body is sustainable? And all these doctors basically came back and said, no, we really, like, this guy, it's not looking good. Like, it's not like you can fix those problems per se. It's more so like, how do you be preventative with injuries going forward? Like, you see what Wemby does, right? Like, all the stretching, all the yoga, all these other things that he does relentlessly to make sure that he stays healthy. Those are all things you can do. At the end of the day, some people's bodies just aren't put together very well, and that's basically what they said. And so they're like, nope, we're sending him back. We'd rather have Dalton Connect. So Dalton Connect comes back. I'm not going to speculate on whether or not that's an awkward thing or not. That's a per-person thing at the end of the day, and I think it's stupid if you have the opinion of, like, oh, this is how he's feeling whatsoever. Or I'd be mad if I was him. Like, why do people put their own feelings on other people? I don't know. I think it's idiotic. But at the end of the day, Lakers fans, you guys added Luka Doncic. Nuts. Absolutely nuts. So good for them. The Chicago Bulls. Right there. Yeah, no, you guys saw the video I put up earlier this week. It's something that I decided to throw together, and it's actually performing pretty well right now, which I think speaks a little bit to the standard of YouTube that, and I know 1,000 views is a good video for me, right? So give me a little bit of slack, okay? But videos like with this title and everything are not ones that I like to do very often. I knew I was being a little clickbaity with it and stuff, but those videos do tend to perform better. So there you go at the end of the day. No, the Bulls... trade deadline was really annoying. Go watch this whole video if you want to see me talk about it a bunch. And I've seen some people clap back at me and they're like, the LaVine trade wasn't that bad. You guys got your first round pick. Let me explain it to you guys one more time, because I don't think you guys are good at doing math if you can't get this through your skull, okay? Look at it this way. So the Bulls basically had a top 8 or top 10 protection, I can't remember which one it was, on their draft pick, and they then got the rights to that full pick back for LaVine. At the end of the day, that's what they got, right? Because Trey Jones probably not going to be on the team, Zach Collins probably not going to be on the team. Well, he's unfortunately on the team next year, same with Kevin Huerter, and that's just what it is. They get that pick back, right? So worst case scenario this year, we somehow play well enough to where we end up with the 11th pick in the draft or something, and then we lose that to San Antonio. San Antonio takes it. It's the 11th overall pick, right? I just don't care. I'd rather have Zach LaVine than whoever that 11th overall pick is. Zach LaVine is good at basketball now. I'd rather just try to trade him again next year. I just don't understand that value proposition. And then you say oh, well, if you would have kept the draft pick this year, then you know what, you might not have, you might lose it next year or whatever. Cool. I'd rather still have Zach LaVine. Zach LaVine is a more valuable asset. So then people say oh, well, clearly not. You got this much or whatever. It's well, look, we weren't winning many games with it anyway, and we've managed to keep our pick up to this point. So you know what? I'd rather just wait for this asset to be better. I can't comprehend this whatsoever. And you can't say that you got something back still, because trading Zach LaVine and not getting that pick back almost still ensured that you weren't going to get that, or that you were going to get to keep the pick, right? It just makes too much sense. So I don't understand. It's dumb that they didn't sell people. Kobe White should have been traded. I like the Lonzo Ball signing and everything, but that has nothing to do with the deadline in and of itself. Bulls are stupid, man. Bulls are stupid. The Timberwolves didn't do anything. Apparently they tried to get Durant last minute. We can grade them a little bit about not trading Julius Randle, but I have a hard time believing, because I haven't heard anything about that in my circles at all at this point now that the dust has settled. So I take it there was nobody interested in Julius Randle really at all. So what, do we give them a C at the end of the day? Because it's yeah, they've got this thing going on where they didn't do anything stupid. They also weren't able to pull off anything all that great, and ultimately they didn't do anything at all. So I guess we just give them a C, because we all know we would have liked to have seen them make a move, but is what it is at the end of the day. The Portland Trailblazers. This one's got to be, they didn't make a deal at all, right? This has got to be very similar to the Chicago Bulls right here. Yeah, no, that's an F as well. That's so stupid. The Trailblazers have all these tradable, valuable players, and they do nothing with them. And in the meantime, their young guys just get no burn or whatever. And the Trailblazers are actually playing pretty good right now. That's the craziest thing. They're they're 8-2 in their last 10 games, and they're winning more basketball games. You should have been, DeAndre Ayton would have been a hard one to move, right? The Jeremy Grants and stuff like that. You want to move guys like that. How do you move Anthony Simons to an Orlando Magic or something like that? I need to know, is Scoot Henderson going to be someone? Is Shaden Sharp going to be someone? Denny's looking really good. How do we get him more minutes? Tomani Kamara's balling right now. Klingon's looking a little bit rough right now, but you know what? He's a rookie. I'm not tripping about it. I still like him long term, but we just don't know right now, because we can't get them on the court, and it's such a weirdly organized roster. None of these players complement each other, and so all the rookies or the young guys are struggling to find consistent fits and stuff like that. So no, F for the Portland Trailblazers. F. The Denver Nuggets. So this is the one we were talking about. They didn't go and make a move at all. So yeah, they tried to throw some value into Zeke Naji there these last couple weeks. They've actually been playing him a little bit more, and I'll be honest, I haven't watched that closely yet to see what we're really looking at in terms of Zeke Naji minutes. But they found nobody. They didn't find anybody really bolster the bench or anything, and they can't really do much in the buyout market. So how do we want to grade them, right? Because look, I'm sure they tried. It's just they got themselves into kind of a shitty situation. So I guess we kind of have to put them at like a D because we still don't like where they're at completely. And the Nuggets are doing well right now, right? Like the Nuggets are winning basketball games. Michael Porter Jr. and Nikola Jokic are just like unstoppable. It feels like right now, and that's really cool. They've got interesting players in like the first 7 people. After that, it gets pretty iffy. And so how do we add more depth to this team? I'm not positive right now. So I don't know. The Oklahoma City Thunder. Oh, this is an interesting one. So they basically just got paid to take on Daniel Tice. And I know they made some other deals too, where they basically they were looking at all the draft picks that they had, and they're like, okay, this is going to be more beneficial if we take our treasure trove and we spread it out a little bit more, so we don't have to worry about trading like a bunch at once, and we can kind of have this even balance in between years. So I'm going to give the Thunder an A, man. I think they crushed it. Like as always, this organization tends to do things really, really well. They didn't go and make a big splash. They didn't need to go make a big splash. I know some people are like, they should have gotten Cam Johnson. Nobody wanted to give him Cam Johnson at the end of the day, and they didn't overpay for him or something. So I think this is a win. They've got like the best team in basketball right now. We'll see how they do in the playoffs, because that's something that I'm genuinely curious about at the end of the day. But shout out OKC, man. I think they did things well, all said and done. The Memphis Grizzlies. Now this one's kind of interesting, right? Because they did make a move. They did move on from Marcus Smart. It wasn't exactly what we thought they were going to do, right? So they got some draft compensation. They also traded Jake LaRavia, which I know Grizzlies fans are sad to probably see him go. This gives them the flexibility they need to go sign Jaren Jackson, though. They brought in Johnny Davis, who probably won't be on the team past this season, and Marvin Bagley here, who could be serviceable in NBA minutes should you need him. I always find Marvin Bagley to be serviceable if you need him. I don't like him reliably like long term, but like spot things here and there, I'm fine with Marvin Bagley. Still a very talented person. So they got some draft compensation. They moved off some salary. They'll be able to re-sign their guys, and they have a great core right now. So overall, I give it a B. Like, I don't know. I just don't think you needed Marcus Smart at the end of the day. Like, the fit wasn't really there. I'm not sure how much value he was really bringing to the team. And now you've given yourself the ability to go make all the moves that you know you need to make. So good for you, Memphis. You didn't go get the stud that you were maybe looking for, but there you go. Alrighty, here we are, the Dallas Mavericks. I think I need to make a new category again. Ah, yes, there we go. That's the correct category right there. Traded a generational talent for no reason. I don't care if any of you have any positive spin on this whatsoever. This is like the dumbest trade I've ever seen. You cannot explain it to me in any way to where I don't just come back to the conclusion of, oh my God, they traded Luka Doncic. And look, if you wanted to come to the conclusion that you needed to trade him, if you did, you just start the bidding war. You would have gotten everything. And they're like, well, we wanted Anthony Davis. Okay, well, you could have gotten more with Anthony Davis. The fact that you didn't drain them of every first-round pick even that they had, oh my God. Like, Max Christie and Anthony Davis are awesome. Anthony Davis is hurt now, by the way, for like potentially like a month or something like that. So there you go. Karma instantly. Like, there is no way that Nico Harrison keeps his job after this season, right? There's no conceivable way. Like, the owners just can't be happy about this. Like, the fans are going to be like, oh my gosh, I can't even imagine. Apparently they've gotten refunds for like the season ticket holders and everything already. That's just, I've never seen a trade this dumb before. I can't conceive it. I really can't. Let's move on before I get pissed off too much. But wow, look at this chart right here. Shout out Lakers fans, and I'm so sorry, Dallas Mavericks fan. Like, I hope you guys don't know, or I hope you guys know that I genuinely feel so bad for you. Like, as bad as I feel to be a Bulls fan, or maybe these Trailblazers fans feel, or whoever else we put down here, you guys have it the worst. I'm so sorry. You were supposed to have 10, 12 more years of Luka Doncic, and now you don't get it. So I'm very sorry about that. The Spurs, they had a great deadline, all said and done. We're going to put the Spurs right up here, and again, the smarter organizations tend to find themselves up here at the top. I'm not surprised to see this. These are 3 of the smarter organizations in the NBA. The Spurs, they get an A. They added De'Aaron Fox for pretty much nothing. They got off of some bad contracts. In this, they gave up draft picks that they just didn't care about, like that Bulls pick, right? There's a reason they're like, oh, here, you want your pick back or whatever? You don't want it back, don't you? And they traded some other, like one of their Spurs picks, a fake first-round pick, and like a future Timberwolves pick that no one really cares about They kept all the Hawks picks in this deal. They didn't give up any young players, and they went and got a good point guard who we'll see about the long-term fit in that. I have some questions, but at the end of the day, you added like an all-star level talent for really not anything at all. Like, you didn't give up any good players at the end of the day. So that's pretty nuts in and of itself. So shout out the Spurs, man, for taking advantage of everybody. They were on the right side of De'Aaron Fox just being a menace and being like, yep, nope, I kind of got you guys got by your balls right now. Here, Fox got your balls. Anyway, the Phoenix Suns. Is it true? I'm seeing some Phoenix Suns news. So I want to like look into this and see if anything has happened regarding this. I thought I heard something saying that there might be a trade falling through or something like that. No, okay. I know there were some people questioning like, hey, does this Yusuf Nurkic deal like still like happen or something like that even after the Mark Williams trade fails? Okay, so it's fine. It's fine. So they ended up moving Nurkic, right? I should probably pull up to see if there was really anything else. They obviously made the one move where they went and got like a bunch of draft picks and stuff like that as part of things. But they brought in Micic, they brought in Martin, they got rid of Nurkic, who he really wasn't doing anything for them. He was having a pretty rough season. And they get Martin, who at least he'll play really good defense. We'll see if the three-point shot comes around. I can't imagine Micic having a huge role in this rotation. I've seen some people say otherwise. I personally don't see it, but we'll see, right? So they spread out their draft assets a little bit this deadline. They did make a move to get off of Nurkic, so I think they got better at the end of the day, and I give this GM, James Jones, a lot of credit in Phoenix because they just keep finding little ways to make the team a little bit better when they have like nothing and they have like no assets whatsoever. So I'm going to give them a B, all said and done. We know that they didn't do the Jimmy Butler thing at the end of the day, but look, this is a very hard team to work with. Bradley Beal, if he wasn't going to go, he wasn't going to go, right? So overall, did we make the big splash move that we wanted to? Maybe not, but you still made the team better, in my opinion. So there you go. The Clippers. Ooh, the Clippers are a tough one. It's going to be a good rating regardless for the Clippers. So I need to like see it all again to kind of take it all in. Yep. So they got Patty Mills and they got Drew Eubanks. They got rid of PJ Tucker, who they needed to get rid of. They kind of had to pay them to take him, right? So they're like, here, take him. They get Drew Eubanks. So they get a new backup center who's actually been kind of okay, right? So we like that. Then they trade Kevin Porter Jr., who's been pretty inefficient overall, for Beauchamp, who we'll see if he survives past this season, right? Where he might be falling out of the league soon. We'll see, right? Not the biggest deal at the end of the day. But then they pull off this trade with Atlanta where they get Bogey here, and they got like 3 second-round picks for taking him on. And look, the logic there was like, Bogey's not having a very good season, and he makes like $17 million a year for like the next couple of years, so you have to take this expensive player for us. To which I go, you guys do realize Bogey's traditionally a pretty good NBA player. He normally shoots the shit out of the basketball. He was hurt for the first part of the season, and he's playing on kind of like a weirdly shaped team right now that's kind of a little dysfunctional. So I'm like, I think Bogey's going to be okay long term. Like, I could be completely wrong, and maybe he's more injured than we think he is or something like that. But like, you got paid to take on a better player in the deal at the end of the day. They got rid of like Bones Highland, and who was the other person in that trade? I don't even remember at the end of the day. I guess I could go over to the Hawks and we could take a look at it, but it was Bones. And then, yeah, like Terrence Mann, like I've seen some Clippers fans be like, oh, he was the culture and everything. And like, Terrence Mann was not a good contract at the end of the day, y'all. He was an average defender, probably at best. I mean, we can take a look at Terrence Mann I don't need to pull up Terrence Mann. He was like average to slightly above average defensively this year, and offensively he was horrible, and he had him under contract for like 10, 11 million for the next couple of years. It's just, I don't know. I want to give the Clippers an A. I think this is great. I think they got off all the contracts that they didn't necessarily need. They brought in a guy that should, in theory, make them better. And they got paid basically in draft picks, which they don't even really have, to take him. So good for you, Clippers. Like, good for you guys. Like, I'm very curious to see where they go at the end of the day. The Warriors. Okay, they got Jimmy, right? They didn't, how do we even like look at this team at this point, right? So obviously they brought in Schroeder, they got rid of Schroeder pretty quickly, right? And they didn't really give up anything else all that valuable. Like Kyle Anderson played some minutes for them, but at the end of the day, they brought in Jimmy, they gave him the extension. I think you did the best you could with your resources. Like, it would have been nice if they got like a Vucevic or something too, or get some better center play. And I don't want to see people being like, Quentin Post is the answer. Stop it. Just stop it, okay? I see a lot of Warriors fans already. Warriors fans are so ready to be like, we're back and everything. You spoiled Warriors fans. Just relax. You beat the Bulls. It's okay, right? Like, yes, Jimmy looked good in that game. I'm fully on the side of like if the Warriors just start winning basketball games because Jimmy Butler is more determined to do so than anybody else in existence, cool, we're all aligned, then that sounds great. I wouldn't be surprised at all, but like, let's pump the brakes a little bit. At the end of the day, this team got better. I think they could have done more, and I think they probably should have acted a little bit quicker, but at the end of the day, they're trying to win for Steph Curry, so they get a B. Good for them. Overall, team's doing pretty good this deadline so far, and we take a look at them. Detroit Pistons. Ooh, Pistons made a smart move. They went and ended up with Schroeder after he got bounced around like how many times at the deadline. KJ Martin, is he still on the team? No, he's in Utah now, right? But Dennis Schroeder is over there. I think Lindy Waters as well. I need to look up where KJ Martin ended up. I'm almost positive he's in Utah now, right? That's where he ended up at the end of the day. Yeah, okay. Just wanted to make sure. Why do they have Drew Eubanks here? That's kind of fucking racist, actually, NBA. No, I'm just kidding. But no. So they bring in Dennis Schroeder. We had talked about how the Pistons are going to be used to facilitate some sort of bigger trade. That's what happened, right? Because they had the cap space to do so. We were like, the Pistons should utilize this as a team that's now performing a lot better than they have before. We're like, they should reward this team. They should go get somebody that's like a buy, right? At the beginning of the year, I said, hey, they should go make a bigger splash, right? Because like, why not? Then we kind of walked ourselves back. We're like, no, they don't really need to right now. Just go make like a little buying move. Just show the team like, hey, look, here, we helped you out a little bit. Let's keep this thing going, right? Keep everybody going. They brought in Dennis Schroeder. Dennis Schroeder's a good basketball player. Warriors fans might not believe me because he didn't play well there. I blame your coaching staff for that a little bit more. I'm just being real with you. But overall, good stuff, Detroit. We're giving you guys an A. I think you guys did exactly what you were supposed to do. Good for you. You didn't quite end up in the added Luka category, but you know what? Dennis Schroeder, close second. Why the hell not? So there you go. There you go. The Sacramento Kings. This is another interesting one. Again, I know I keep saying that, but like this was such a weird deadline. The Kings did pretty well overall. They lost their best player in De'Aaron Fox. That sucks, right? But also, De'Aaron Fox came to them who, look, it's their fault at the end of the day that they weren't able to put together a little more winning basketball. He was patient. He waited. I don't blame De'Aaron Fox for wanting out at all, right? Kings are historically a poverty franchise. Sorry to tell you guys, I'm kind of in there with you at the end of the day. So Kings fans, you guys know, you haven't always been the greatest team. De'Aaron Fox comes to them and he says, hey, I'm out one way or another. You might as well go do something with it. He made it public, and so they can just only get so much back for him. And at the end of the day, they brought in Zach LaVine, who's a very comparable basketball player in terms of talent, right? They're kind of on the same level overall. Like, I know De'Aaron Fox is he made an All-NBA team at one point, right? Because he was actually on a winning basketball team at one point, and that's kind of what tips the scale a little bit more. But like, Zach LaVine is a better offensive player, there's no doubt about that, and then a slightly worse defensive player, but you brought someone in of similar value at the end of the day. And so you bring in LaVine, you also go and get Jake LaRavia, which is a very underrated, like, young player to bring in. You needed some depth on the team, especially at the forward spot, and you were able to do that. That's awesome. Like, I think that's a great move. And they went and got Valanciunas. They needed a backup center, and they really didn't have to trade much to go get him. I'm giving the Kings an A overall, which is crazy considering they lost their best player. But again, the context of it, there was nothing that they could do. I think their front office did the best with the cards that they had currently. And so shout out to them, man. They at least got some capital for Fox. They went and got LaVine, who, again, like I said with the Bulls, now if they want to, they can at least move LaVine in the future. If he continues to play really good basketball and he's got less time on a contract, now all of a sudden it's not so scary to take him on for like 3 years or something like that. Now it's only 2 years, potentially only one, that if you want to trade him again, a team could see Zach LaVine as like a rental or something like that. And then his value goes back up again because you're not worried about the contract. So then maybe you can go get more for him. It's just good for the Kings, man. Good for the Kings. Notice how both the Spurs and the Kings ended up in here, and the other team involved in that trade is down here. Just wanted to point that out. Cleveland Cavaliers got an A. Absolutely swindled the Atlanta Hawks. There's a siren going by. I don't mean to flex on you guys whatsoever. I know I talk about the sirens going by all the time. I did look at a penthouse today because, you know, your boy is, you know, doing all right in life. And no, I'm like, I did. I'm not sure I'm actually going to go through with it because I'm a little cheapskate and I'm very fiscally conservative as a person. But I was just like, man, I can't believe I got to this point and then I wouldn't be able to hear those sirens all the time, potentially. But anyway, no, the Cleveland Cavaliers get an A because they went and got DeAndre Hunter for like literally nothing, right? So let's take a look at this. They've been needing this position for a while. What did they trade back to the Atlanta Hawks? Karis LeVert, good basketball player. He's been playing good basketball for them this year. Karis LeVert is not as good as DeAndre Hunter, and he's the position they need. Georges Niang, they didn't need him on the team anymore. Ask any fan of theirs. And then like all these second round picks that they sent over aren't even like real second round picks. They're like second round swaps and stuff like that, that in all honesty, I don't think any of them are actually going to convey. So I don't understand. And we're going to get to the Hawks, right? We'll get to the Hawks. But overall, the Cavs gave up like nothing for this. They just traded salary matching, and they just got better at a position they need. A guy that's scoring like 20 points per game at the position that they needed. Cavs might have the best starting five in basketball. It's close, right? It's not as far off as we want to think it is, but it was close. They get an A. The Celtics, they get an A. All they had to do was trade Jaden Springer for salary purposes, and they did that. Good for them. They did what they were supposed to do. Cool. There wasn't anything else they could do. So there you go. The Sixers. I need to take a look at this because I went kind of back and forth on this. So they got Quentin Grimes in this deal. They traded Caleb Martin for Quentin Grimes. I'd rather have Quentin Grimes than Caleb Martin, most likely. He's a young player. He's playing good basketball right now. At first, it was just they got a pick and Quentin Grimes, and they sent back Caleb Martin because the Mavericks would have rather had the salary and everything of Caleb Martin. I know we didn't talk about Caleb Martin at all in the Dallas Mavericks thing, but you didn't need to. You got an F regardless. If you wanted to watch a recap of all the trades, I've got a video for you. It's right there. Look, trade deadline recap. I made it big and yellow for all of you guys to read on there. But anyway, no, like overall, it's kind of weird to think about. So you got back Grimes. I think that was a good trade. You ended up having to send another second round pick back with Caleb because of the injuries that were uncovered about Caleb Martin. Again, the same thing could have happened with the Mark Williams trade. That trade could have fallen apart, but instead Philly or Dallas said, no, we still want Caleb. We'll wait for him to heal and everything. We think it'll be fine, but just give us another second round pick and then we'll push it through anyway, to which Philly was like, fuck it, there we go. So there you go. They also then traded KJ Martin, and they kind of had to pay to get off of him, and they didn't get anything back. And the whole reason of signing KJ Martin to the contract that you did was to put him into a trade and get some assets later. So that looks pretty dumb, all said and done. So I think what I want to give them is probably a C. They feel like in the middle for me. I think they made like a solid move and then like a kind of like what a bummer type of move, right? And maybe you could say that there's a case that they did the best with the assets that they could at this point, but I'm going to give them a C for now. I'd hear a B if you wanted to. I maybe even hear a D. Maybe you could. Maybe you feel extra annoyed about the KJ Martin thing, but all said and done, that's where they are. The Charlotte Hornets. All right, let's talk about it, because obviously the Mark Williams thing didn't end up actually happening. So what do we got here? The Dalton Connect thing, they didn't end up getting him anymore. They didn't get Cam Reddish. The Josh Okogie thing happened a little bit earlier. So basically they got paid in a first-round pick to take on Jusuf Nurkic, which... fair enough, Jusuf Nurkic clearly is not going to help you win many basketball games right now. The Hornets are, I've heard a lot of people talk about this on the Discord and maybe a little bit confused. They're rebuilding during a rebuild. New owners have come in, new GMs have come in while this team was in the middle of a rebuild, and they're kind of saying, okay, yeah, the way that they were doing it didn't really make a lot of sense, and I tend to agree with that. And so they're trying to just be like, okay, let us go get our own assets and our own things, and we're kind of going to sell a little bit while we were starting this rebuild so that we can kind of start from scratch again. If you're a Hornets fan, I genuinely think you should feel okay about things. I think there's still a lot of work to be done, but this organization is moving in a much better way than it has been historically. We started picking up on that in the offseason, and we were talking about it a lot, so I'm curious to see where they go with things going forward. I think they have some tough decisions to make with LaMelo Ball, honestly, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Overall, I'll give this team a B. I think it was good at the end of the day. Maybe not like great, but good. Good. The Wizards. Ooh, we don't normally get to say good things about the Wizards. Let's pull up the Wizards, right? Overall, I think you guys did okay. You got back a bunch of nonsense stuff. You got some draft picks. You got an unprotected pick. That's good at the end of the day. We feel good about that because this team needed some draft capital. They bought out some guys, took on the salary because that's okay. They moved on from Valanciunas like they were supposed to, and they got guys like Marcus Smart. That's cool. They got Chris Middleton. They got a young guard that they can test out in AJ Johnson a little bit. So they got some nice vets to maybe not make this team quite so booty bun cheeks, right? I think that's the medical term for what the Wizards are as a basketball team, and overall, they're not going to be any better, most likely, right? They're not going to win that many more games because of it, and it's not like it matters anyway, right? As long as you're one of the bottom couple teams, you have the same draft odds, and I don't think anybody's keeping up with the Wizards in their losing efforts. So I think they've done all they could. You might as well just have some good vets around the young guys at this point. So what do we give them? I'd say we give them an A. Good job, Washington. I think you guys did okay. Orlando didn't make any moves, right? Orlando didn't make any moves. Yeah, no, I got to give that one an F. That's bad. Like, this team, we talked about it in the offseason, right? I'm like, this team can't exist in the way that it is, right? And this is a young team, and there's still plenty of time, right? But we said going into this season, you need some sort of shot creator on the team. Banchero and Franz are not those people. You need someone to support them because they are incredible talents at what they do. They are not shot creators, right? Especially come playoff time, they are going to be too easy to game plan for again. And I think that there's a lot of Magic people that are of this philosophy, and I'm not saying internally necessarily, maybe more so fans that are like, oh, well, we've got this grit and grind culture, and this culture is awesome that they're developing. Like I'm excited about it. But you can't just have everyone be a defensive guru. That doesn't work. I promise you. I've been around this. It does not work. You need to have some diversity in your roster. You need to go get somebody that can go get you some buckets. And they might not be a lockdown defender in return. The fact that they didn't end up with like a Kobe White and Anthony Simons, two of these other teams that are down here, right? Like a Colin Sexton, who you definitely could have gone and gotten just to make the team a little bit better right now. You wouldn't have to give up a ton to get him either, and you've got some extra assets. Like, how many more young players do you want on the team? Like, I don't know. It's dumb to me. They should have made a move. They're paying the price for it right now. Magic are suffering pretty mightily right now, and the two best players are struggling. Maybe go get a shot creator. Things get a little bit easier for your two best players. So, just something to think about. Miami Heat. They traded Jimmy. And they brought back, how should we rate this at the end of the day? They got Andrew Wiggins. They should probably feel good about Wiggins. Kyle Anderson, meh. I think Davion Mitchell is an interesting player for them to have. I could see him having a role early on. They got a little bit of draft compensation. What do we give it, a C? They had to trade Jimmy, and they got back some interesting stuff at the end of the day. Like, is it anything to write home about? But the Heat will still be competitive. I think just the way they handled the whole Jimmy thing, like, Jimmy could have handled it better as well, but we're grading the Heat right now, and they also didn't handle it great, so I think he kind of ruined the asset. I'm going to give him a C overall. The Atlanta Hawks. We've been talking about them a lot this video because they were involved pretty mightily. So they pay the Clippers to take Bogey, and they take back Bones, who they just cut instantly, which, you know, whatever. I guess I don't care about that too much at the end of the day. They take back a bad contract in Terrence Mann currently. They got some draft compensation that we established is not real draft compensation, and you got some guys that are, you know, I think Levert's gone at the end of the year, and then you got Niang for a little bit longer, which, like, I don't understand what direction this team is going in. I can't quite put my finger on it. I don't think they're positive of it either. They're again in this similar space of the Bulls where they just continue to stay in the middle and they can't pick a direction for things. We said in the offseason, we're like, they should go trade for Brandon Ingram now. See if that's kind of the missing piece of, like, maybe not the missing piece, but like, can these two fit together? It's basically a 1-year rental. You wouldn't have to give up a ton clearly to go get him. So you go bring in Brandon Ingram. You see if those two work together. If it goes well, you sign him to an extension or something like that, right? He gets exactly what he wants. If things don't go well, he falls off your books and you don't have the salary. But now you took on, like, other salaries still past this season and it's not even good, and that you traded some draft picks. You didn't really get anything back. So I got to give them an F. I think it was bad. I think it was bad at the end of the day. You traded DeAndre Hunter too for, like, nothing, like peak value, and you really didn't get anything to show for it at the end of the day, which you grew this guy, you made him a good basketball player, and then you just gave him away. So it's kind of like a Zach LaVine thing as well. Maybe you think the market wasn't that great for him, but, like, overall, then you should have just kept the player. It's not like you were doing great with him anyway, so you shouldn't be worried about, like, the tanking and everything, but I don't know. It is what it is at the end of the day. So we'll move on. Indiana Pacers. Yeah, that's right. The only trade they made was they got off of Wiseman's money and they got some draft compensation and stuff like that. So they kind of just did a little swap like that. It was kind of a nothing thing. They weren't able to do anything all that good, all that bad. I'm not sure they had to make a move. I would have liked to have seen it, but it's pretty much meh in the middle. And there we go. That's our draft grades overall right here. Not too shabby at the end of the day. A lot of top heavy things are, like, fine at the end of the day. Really we only see 5, 6 loser teams right here. You maybe got Denver here, which again, maybe a little bit borderline. You could maybe tell me it's okay. The Bulls, Blazers, Magic, Hawks, and definitely the Dallas Mavericks down here at the bottom. It's just But overall, a lot of people doing some smart things this trade deadline. You should be happy if you're one of these teams. Feel free to fight me in the comments below about other things if you want to. I don't care. You guys just say whatever you want at the end of the day. But anyway, speaking of comments, let's go do our comment of the video. All right, y'all, comment of the video. No surprise here. It's coming with the coming from the I'm done with the Chicago Bulls video right here. It's actually one from just like 2 hours ago. I read this one and it made me laugh. He basically was saying Patrick Williams sounds like the NBA version of the singing frog. Sings his butt off while nobody's around, but nothing but a croak when people are around. That is a awesome comparison. Very well said. I was talking about in this how Patrick Williams, like in practice and stuff, is killing people. They send him down to the G League to practice sometimes, and he just crushes everybody. And then he comes into the game and he's just like, no, I'm okay. I think I'll just pass the ball around and play some defense. And it's just like, dude, like what? You're so fast and you're so big and strong. You can handle the ball and pass and do all this stuff. And I don't know. But hey, go leave me a comment on this video. Maybe you'll be the comment to the video and everything. Go join the Discord. We're talking in there all the time. I know I'm contributing and stuff, and plenty of other people are contributing more than me. But anyway, thanks as always, guys, and we'll talk to y'all later. Bye.